It is the summer of 1914. Archduke Franz Ferdinand has just been assassinated in Sarajevo, and within weeks, the most powerful enemies on earth are mobilizing armies numbering in the millions. Trenches stretch 400 miles across France and Belgium. Men are living in mud, rats, and misery. And into that hellscape walks the American Doughboy in 1917, stepping off the boat and onto a battlefield already soaked in the blood of millions. Today, we are going deep into the full arsenal of the Central Powers: Germany, Austria-Hungary, the Ottoman Empire, and Bulgaria, and breaking down every major weapon America and her allies had to face in the war to supposedly end all wars. We are talking rifles, pistols, machine guns, submachine guns, and the weapon so terrifying men would rather take a bullet than face it. Spoiler, it did not end all wars, but some of those weapons absolutely ended people. The backbone of the Imperial German Army was the Gewehr 98, designed by the legendary Paul Mauser and chambered in 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser. This was not a gentle cartridge. At the muzzle, it is moving at 2,900 feet per second. At 500 meters, it still hits hard enough to punch through muscle, shatter bone, and exit the other side. A hit at any combat range was not something you walked away from without serious medical intervention. And in 1914, serious medical intervention often meant a saw and a prayer, a round internal magazine, legendary controlled round feed reliability, and a rear sight calibrated to 2,000 meters. Though if you are shooting at a man 2 kilometers away, you both have made some questionable life choices. Its main trench warfare drawback: nearly 4.5 feet with a bayonet attached. Maneuvering through a narrow trench with one was like parallel parking a school bus in a hallway. Germany addressed this with the Karabiner 98AZ carbine, which would evolve into the iconic K98K of World War II. We will get there in video 2. Luger P08 is the firearm everyone associates with Imperial Germany, and for good reason. This toggle-link semi-automatic pistol, chambered in 9x19mm Parabellum, was issued to officers, NCOs, artillery crews, and machine gun teams. Its distinctive upward-folding toggle action was a mechanical marvel, and also mechanically fussy. Dirt and mud could turn it into an expensive paperweight, which was a problem when your entire combat environment was composed of mud. Despite that, American soldiers coveted captured Lugers above almost any other trophy, trading, gambling, and doing things they would not write home about just to get their hands on one. That tradition of Luger hunting continued straight through World War II. The P08 carries into video 2, still on German hips, still being hunted. If one weapon defined the horror of the Western Front, it was the MG08. Based on Hiram Maxim's design, an American invention used against American troops, which is a fun historical irony. It fired 7.92 by 57 millimeters at 400 rounds per minute from 250-round fabric belts. Water-cooled, meaning a crew could sustain fire indefinitely as long as ammunition and water held. One MG08 crew could maintain a wall of lead across an open field for hours. On July 1, 1916, the first day of the Somme, German MG08 crews helped inflict 57,000 British casualties in a single day. One day. That is not a typo. The MG08 did not just kill men. It killed the entire concept of the infantry charge as viable battlefield doctrine. Late in the war, Germany introduced something genuinely revolutionary: the MP-18, designed by Hugo Schmeisser, chambered in 9mm parabellum and fed from a 32-round snail drum magazine. It was the world's first practical submachine gun, purpose-built for trench clearing. In the confined nightmare of a trench assault, a man with an MP-18 could put 9mm rounds into everything in front of him faster than anyone with a bolt action could respond. At close range, 9mm parabellum at 1,200 feet per second in an enclosed space is not a firefight. It is an execution. Germany's elite Sturmtruppen used it during the spring offensives of 1918 to devastating effect. It arrived too late to change the outcome, but it created the template for every submachine gun that followed, including the MP-40, coming in video too. The Mauser C96, the broom handle, named for that distinctive grip, was purchased privately by thousands of German officers and saw widespread frontline use. Chambered in 7.63 by 25mm Mauser, it was actually faster than 9mm parabellum, giving it excellent penetration for a pistol caliber round. 10-round fixed magazine loaded via stripper clips, a shoulder stock that doubled as a holster, and firepower that outclassed most contemporary sidearms. You may also recognize that silhouette. The C96 was the direct inspiration for Han Solo's blaster in Star Wars. The most iconic sci-fi weapon in history is a World War I German pistol. You are welcome. Germany also fielded squad-level light machine guns, including the Bergmann MG-15NA, giving Sturmtruppen portable automatic firepower without dragging a water-cooled gun through the mud. The fire and movement doctrine built around these weapons defines infantry tactics to this day. Alongside that, Germany was among the most sophisticated users of indirect trench fire. The Granatenwerfer 16 trench mortar lobbed projectiles in high arcs directly into enemy trenches, bypassing any cover. Rifle grenade cup launchers fitted to Gewehr 98 muzzles extended that indirect fire to individual soldiers. Drop enough mortar rounds into a trench, and you force the enemy to move, right into the machine guns always waiting for exactly that. Germany did not merely use the flamethrower in World War I. Germany invented it, deployed it first in combat, and refined it across 4 years of horrific battlefield experience. Richard Fiedler developed practical designs as early as 1901, and the German Army fielded them operationally in 1914, making Germany the undisputed architect of one of the most feared weapons in the history of warfare. The Flammenwerfer M16 used a back-mounted pressurized canister filled with coal tar oil and benzene, connected by a hose to a handheld nozzle. Pressurized nitrogen propelled the fuel through the nozzle, where an igniter set it ablaze. The burning stream reached 20 to 35 meters, the length of a house, as a wall of liquid fire moving toward you in a trench you cannot leave. Temperatures exceeding 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. Clothing ignites instantly. Equipment melts to skin. Burns were almost universally fatal, given 1915 field medicine. The screams of burning men in an enclosed trench carried across the entire battlefield. That sound was itself a weapon. First used in combat on July 30th, 1915 at Hoog in Belgium against British troops, the psychological effect was total. Men who survived described it as bypassing rational thought entirely. You were not making tactical decisions anymore. You were running. Germany deployed dedicated Flammenwerfer assault units in over 650 documented combat operations by war's end. Every major military subsequently developed their own versions. American Marines used flamethrowers to clear Japanese bunkers at Iwo Jima 30 years later. The concept Germany built at Hoog in 1915 is still influencing weapons doctrine today. When every military on Earth spends a century copying your invention, you built something that mattered. Austria-Hungary's standard service rifle had a defining feature that set it apart from nearly every bolt action in the war: the straight pull bolt. Where everyone else lifted, pulled, pushed, and pressed down to cycle around, the Mannlicher went straight back and straight forward. A trained Austrian soldier could cycle noticeably faster than his counterparts, putting follow-up shots on target with a speed that regularly surprised enemies expecting the standard rhythm. Chambered in 8x50mm R feeding from a 5-round en-bloc clip that ejected automatically on the last round, the grandfather of the concept that gave the M1 Garand its famous ping. The M1895 served on every front Austria-Hungary fought on and was still turning up in active combat during World War II. The Rothsteyr M1907 holds a genuine historical distinction. It was the first semi-automatic pistol adopted as standard military issue by any nation in the world. Chambered in 8mm Rothsteyr, 10-round fixed internal magazine, rotating barrel, short recoil design. Not a particularly hard-hitting cartridge, but mechanically reliable and historically significant. Every military that ever issued a semi-automatic service pistol owes something to what Austria-Hungary figured out first. Austria-Hungary's infantry officers carried the Steyr-Hahn M1912. Chambered in 9mm Steyr, 8 rounds via stripper clip, a rotating barrel design respected enough that German forces rechambered captured examples to 9mm Parabellum rather than discard them. Their primary machine gun was the Schwarzlos M0712, a delayed blowback water-cooled belt-fed weapon delivering 400 rounds per minute. Simpler to manufacture than Germany's MG08, which mattered enormously for an empire fighting on multiple fronts with a perpetually strained industrial base. The Schwarzlos remained in service in multiple nations through World War II, a design that outlasted the empire that built it. The Ottomans entered the war as the so-called sick man of Europe, a crumbling empire losing territory for a century. Their regular army carried the Mauser M1903, a license-produced Gewehr 98 variant chambered in 7.65 by 53mm Turkish Mauser, the direct product of German military training missions that had been running in Constantinople for years. Allied troops at Gallipoli discovered exactly how effective Ottoman marksmen with those rifles could be. The 1915 campaign cost over 130,000 Allied lives, in no small part because Ottoman defenders on commanding high ground had a killing field over every beach and ridge the Allies attempted. The sick man had very sharp teeth. Beyond the Mauser, irregular Ottoman forces carried a bewildering mix. Older Martini Henry single-shot rifles, captured Russian Mosin Nagants from the Caucasus campaigns, Remington rolling block rifles, and British pattern arms seized in earlier conflicts. Every position you cleared could have a different weapon behind it. Germany supplemented all of this with MG08 machine guns and embedded German officers who operated them, meaning Allied forces in Mesopotamia and Palestine faced the same machine gun systems killing men on the Western Front, sometimes operated by actual German soldiers in Ottoman uniforms. The alliance effectively extended Germany's reach across 2 continents. Bulgaria entered the war in October 1915 with a battle-hardened army fresh from the Balkan Wars, men who had been in real combat recently and knew exactly what they were doing. Primary rifle was the Mannlicher M1895, supplemented by German-supplied Gewehr 98s. Machine guns were the Schwarzlos M0712 and German MG08s. They fought primarily on the Macedonian front, tying down significant Allied resources that could have gone to France. Bulgaria held their front until September 1918. when food shortages and a collapsing home front forced the armistice of Salonika, making them the first Central Power to formally quit the war, often overlooked, never irrelevant. From the bone-shattering reach of the Gewehr 98 to the world-altering terror of the Flammenwerfer, from the straight-pull speed of the Mannlicher to the revolutionary MP-18, the Central Powers fielded weapons that were innovative, sophisticated, and in several cases, genuinely decades ahead of their time. The MP-18 created the submachine gun. The Flammenwerfer created doctrine every military copied for a century. The MG08 ended cavalry warfare forever. These guns did not just fight one war, they were the foundation for the next one. In video 2, we are covering World War II, the largest, deadliest conflict in human history, and the absolute mountain of firepower Germany, Japan, and Italy brought to that fight. The K98K, the MP40, the MG42, a machine gun so fast it did not sound like a machine gun. It sounded like tearing canvas and fired 1,200 rounds per minute. Allied soldiers called it Hitler's buzzsaw and dove for the ground the moment they heard it spin up. We are talking the Japanese Arisaka, the Type 96 and Type 99 light machine guns, the Nambu pistol, and the weapons American GIs in the Pacific carried home nightmares about. Video number 2 is coming. You do not want to miss it. If this breakdown hit right, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who thinks they know their military history. Stay safe, stay armed. We will see you on the next one.